So Wetters, the voice starts and Bards is not here. Remember last time he's at session with Delta? Is it with Kylie?
You know it's all in your head. You better put that business to bed. By your bare hands of the sign you met with the monster in your mind. You did it again. You did it again.
He's a sick man, the big man, and I'll miss him this week because I was very interested in his views on the weekend's game, but there's no question he's watching The Voice.
Well, maybe. I mean, it's budget night as well. So, look, I'm going to have a multiple choice questionnaire here for our listeners as to where is Bards tonight. Is it A, watching The Voice, B, picking himself off the floor after listening to the budget, C, refusing to come on air because he doesn't want to give 5 votes because we lost, or D, looking for Ben Stratton?
Well, I would say the first two are as bad as each other, the budget and The Voice. There's no winners there.
All right, well, it's over to you to give the score.
All right, well, we travelled up to Sydney on Friday night and lost 13-10-88 to 15-17-107 to the Swans. Goal kickers for Hawthorn, Bruce and Roughhead with 3 each, Simpkin with 2, Birchall, Puopolo, Hale, Suckling and Duray. And in the absence of votes, the best were listed as Roughhead, Burgoyne, Lewis, Duray, Langford and Hill. I would be putting a line through Hill. His disposal was rotten. Roughhead only came into the game late. I thought Burgoyne was clearly our best on the night.
Well, we'll have to wait till next week to see who Bard selects as his 5-4-3-2-1 and whether he gives 5. I think it's a bit harsh if he doesn't give Burgoyne 5,
Yep.
But we'll just have to wait and see from Bard.
Sure.
Well, how did you see it, Adam?
Reality is the score was a lot closer than it probably should have been. Ironically, Buddy Franklin kept us in the game. But at the end of the day, we were just a little bit undermanned. We, missing a couple of big-bodied midfielders with Hodges' late withdrawal from the game. It left us a little bit exposed through the guts, and that's where the likes of Hanbury and Kennedy got on top. That said, we were pretty brave, given the side that we put out, and they fought back very well. And I think as a Hawthorn supporter, there's really not a lot to see here. It's not going to have any big impact on the season. Once we get cattle in the park, we'll be fine.
Ironically, the difference was 19 points, which is exactly what Buddy kicked. He kicked 2-7. What if he had a kick 7 too? That could have been quite ugly.
Could have been ugly, but, bad kicking's bad football. And, the funny thing about this is that it was almost the 2012 grand final in reverse. Sydney were clearly the better side, but nearly kicked themselves out of the game. But as I say, mate, I think not a lot to see here. If anything, I think getting extra games into guys like Hallahan and a little bit of time that Hartung spent on the park is going to be good for us in the longer term.
Hey, interesting the condition of the ground. Now, a lot of people we know that are listeners went up to the game, and I'd be interested in what they thought of the ground, but how much was there slipping and didn't seem the right sort of surface, did it?
It didn't. Massive Hawthorn fan Johnny Palermo went up to the game and gave me a call on Saturday to find out what I thought from watching it on TV, and I did ask him whether it looked as though from the ground the players were shifting on top of the surface, and he said absolutely they were, and that contributed to bad disposal, not only from us but from the Swans as well. It just is not a good ground for footy.
Well, look, we'll move on. There's nothing to see here, as you say. There's nothing more to talk about because we've got a bye in terms of football, and there's nothing to talk about in terms of nearest to the pin because we all went into the water. So, a few things to talk about in the absence of a game, and let's start with the bump, which happened after we recorded last week's show. Now, the right thing came of it, but what was everybody on during the course of the weekend? I think there was, 6 bumps?
Yeah, it was crazy. I tell you what, though, have you seen the footage of Paul Chapman? He was going the elbow as opposed to the bump, and I fail to see how he gets assessed the same way as somebody like Jared Roughhead, who is a ball player, who gets a week, and look, under the rules as they sit now, is entitled to get a week, but Chapman sniping blokes behind play on a couple of occasions with a lifted elbow gets the same penalty. This is what I don't understand about it. How do you see it?
I see it like Clarko, and that he's the guy from Geelong. Fair assessment? Any views on Clarko's thoughts at the presser?
Yeah, look, I have no problem with it. You know, I enjoy watching certain press conferences from certain coaches. Bomber Thompson always gives me a laugh with his laid-back attitude, but frankly, I want my coach angry, and Clarko was rightly pissed, and I want him on edge like that. This is why he is probably the best coach in AFL football today. He doesn't accept crap, and what Tom Harley dished up was crap.
Well, most of Channel 7's commentary team dish up crap, don't they?
Yeah, I think Bruce has got to give it away. I think Dennis has just about had enough as well.
What was that call of Bruce's on the weekend? Jack off
Jack
and running?
off running. And there was that little ball went off and running.
And the little snigger that Tom Harley made after it.
Bruce is just rolled.
On many accounts. Now, a bit of sad news. Tom Hafey, legend of the game.
Legend of the game and a gentleman, a true gentleman. I was lucky enough to meet Tom Hafey a few years ago when I was living in Sydney, and he is one of the truly great football men and just a real vibrant, positive man. And yeah, big loss to the game.
Unbelievable when you wound him up. I was at a work function he came and spoke to, asked a few questions. Once he started, he was off, and just absolutely inspirational man to listen to, wasn't he?
Yeah, the passion of the man was just about unmatched.
So, for the few people that listen to us, we pass on our sympathies to the Hafey family. Now, it's time for some questions. I love it when our good people here on Hawks One-Eyed View send in the questions. And let's start with Aaron. And he's gone, what are the boys doing over the bye weekend? Well, first of all, Bards is watching some of the boys' free plays. Adam, what are you up to?
I actually haven't given it much thought. I'll see what other footy's on and might take it very easy. I did hear that Josh Gibson might be on his way to LA at the moment. They've been given the time off until about Wednesday, the Hawks, and I believe his LA-based girlfriend has called him in on a booty call of sorts.
Apparently it's all been cleared by the leadership team, so nothing to see here. Move on, Adam. All right. Jeff says, have we had enough of Monday Night Football? My view, yes.
Agree.
Aaron comes in and says, should we keep football only over the weekend? I think he's got the same view as Jeff, don't you?
Look, I agree with him. I assume he's still thinking Friday night is good, and if so, I don't think there's any need for Thursday night footy or Monday night footy, the Anzac Day game being the only exception to the Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Well, here's a big one. Jason Williams said, is it too early to be thinking about rebuild?
Sorry, is that a legitimate question? Serious?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. I think one thing that Clarkson has done well over his tenure is he's introduced young players as needed and been able to turn the list over without having us being in contention, so to speak. So I think the introduction of Hallahan, Langford, Hartung, the development of Hill, etc., means that when it's time for guys like Mitchell, Hodge, Sewell and so on to move on, we will have enough games into the next crop so that it's a fairly seamless transition.
Well, it's interesting because Nick Hogendijk has gone next question along similar lines, which was list management becomes a big issue for us as we begin to age. And he wanted to know whether we take the Geelong type approach. The answer to that is we don't take any Geelong type of approach, but he's hit the panic button and said Mitchell, Sewell, Lake, Gibson. Now, Gibson, I wouldn't be too panicky right now.
Mitchell, Sewell, Lake and Gibson. So, okay, let's go through those. Gibson in career best form. Lake, only 3 games ago, won a Norm Smith medal. Yes, he has a slight calf problem, but very, very good footballer, has another year or 2 left easily. Mitchell, well, he was in Brownlow medal form until he twanged his hammy last week. And Sewell, well, we're just not going to know about Sewell until he comes back. My understanding is he'll have a game at Box Hill, but we'll get a better look at Sewell once we've seen him play this season.
Well, I'm going to jump Nick's next question. I'll go straight to Johnny Palermo because he wants to know, do you reckon Sewell is in our best 22?
This is a Johnny G up because he and I argue about Brad Sewell at work all the time. The question is, right at the moment, I don't know. You've got to have a look at him and see how he's come back from his injury. Certainly, going into the season fully fit, I'd have still had him in our best 22. I look at Langford and Hallahan, who are really good young midfielders, but the thing that they don't have, or particularly in Langford's case, is he's not a big presence over the football. Sewell, on a game like Friday night, for example, would have been a major asset around the ball with the big-bodied Swans midfielders.
All right, well, let's jump back to Nick's question, which was first impressions of Billy Hartung. Now, I'll give you my thoughts about Billy Hartung, and that is great runner. I haven't seen anything like him. I mean, I thought Smith and Hill were fast, but this guy's unbelievable. My concern, though, is that we've got to replace guys like Sewell, Mitchell and Hodge, who go in and get the ball, and Hartung's just another one of these blokes who runs like hell.
And you're right. The next 3 there are obviously Hallahan, Langford, and the forgotten man who was putting together a superb season until he got hurt, and that's Liam Shields. Hartung's probably an alternative to a Smith or a Hill. The thing about Hartung is he holds the all-time beat test record and currently, in my view, sits in the top 3 in the AFL for worst hairdos.
All right. Well, look, Nick's still hitting the panic button overnight here, and that is top 3 trades we will make to begin to replenish the list.
Look, we've got salary cap room. No doubt they're having a chat to Chip Frawley. I would think they're having a look at Nat Fyfe as well. And it's really hard to say what's going to happen in the off-season, but they've obviously got some money to play with, and they tend to recruit according to need, but I don't think it's any time for list turnover, given that we are the reigning premiers and currently sit second on the AFL ladder. I think everybody's getting a little bit ahead of themselves. Last year, we were a $3 favourite to win the premiership.
Maybe what we should do is parcel up some Dad's Army DVDs for Nick and send them over to him. You know, that Corporal Jones, don't panic, tell you when to panic.
And we can send a copy of the 1991 Grand Final as well. The team that was too old, too slow and too good.
Well, a non-Hawks question from Mr. Hogendijk, which was, do we think, even though Port's been pretty solid for 8 weeks, that because they've got a young brigade of players, their intensity is going to drop off? And I reckon he's hoping for next week.
Yeah, no, I think not. They did win a final last year. They probably could have won a second final and another pre-season. And you look at the really good young kids they've got, probably Wingard and Wines, and they are both, or particularly Wines, is built like a brick outhouse. No, they're not going to slow down. They're going to finish top 3 or top 4 and are going to be a legitimate threat to Hawthorn going back-to-back.
So, next one was, Nick was recognising Tom Hafey, which we've done. Jeff reckons that with everything that Nick's posted, we won't have enough to say. And then finally, we do enjoy getting these questions, don't we, Adam?
We do, and I enjoy talking shite with the best of them.
Well, to be honest, it's a nice way to interact if people aren't going to actually come on via Skype and join us. So, keep it up. We're happy to talk to your questions, everybody.
We might convince Mr. Palermo over the next couple of weeks.
Now, we've got a biggie to respond to from last week, Adam.
What's that?
You've been holding fire for a while, and I'm interested in your response because I think you may have interpreted it the wrong way, and that's from our friend Kelly Schultz, who a lot of thought went into her post a week or so ago. And really, you know Kelly, you've met Kelly. She stayed with Anne and I, and she got to learn about our recording sessions and how passionate we were about the game and everything. And Kelly didn't know much about football and the ins and outs of it until she met us. And she's just questioning how devoted we make the rest of the family as a result of our passion. Adam.
Sometimes passion becomes too much.
Well, see, here's the thing, Housey. I'm lucky. My wife loves Hawthorn and loves the footy. Whereas your family, mate, they don't like it. They don't like it. You got to stop watching them to go. They don't want to go.
Adam, you know that's not true.
I've got one for you, Housey. Let's see if you can get the kids to go. This will be the true test. This is a challenge I'm throwing out to you, my friend. Let's see if we can get the kids to go without bringing their iPads.
Space invaders.
I don't think it's about the kids. It's about the spouses. Now,
You want to stitch me up, Housey? I've got plenty for you, my friend.
I'm not stitching you up because what I wanted to do was say to our listeners, do their spouses follow Hawthorn? Because let's fill in for the listeners why our respective spouses follow Hawthorn. Now, Adam,
Right.
why does Mrs. Wedlock follow Hawthorn?
Mrs. Wedlock is a Sydney girl, and when we started going out some 11 or 12 years ago, it was actually, about 11 years ago, she realised I had interest in football, and the first time I ever took her to a football game was the day I brought her to Melbourne, and the first game of football that my young lady ever saw was the Line in the Sand game. And if that is not enough to get you passionate about football, and Hawthorn in particular, then nothing is.
Yep, I agree with that. Now, interestingly enough, there's a connection with Mrs. Howes and Essendon. Because when I met Mrs. Howes, she wasn't a passionate football follower, but she'd selected Essendon. And because we're originally from the motherland, the sponsor of the club, a passing interest, thought she should follow a VFL team, didn't really follow it locally. Over time, obviously, I kept taking her to great games. She saw the wonderful Dermot, she saw the wonderful Dunny, the Rat, etc. And we got to 1996, and this call came in, and that was, if Hawthorn survives the merger, I'm changing my allegiance. And that's why Mrs. Howes is a Hawthorn supporter.
Wow.
So, we were interested tonight, for the people that actually listen to us, to tell us if their spouse doesn't barrack for Hawthorn, why is that acceptable? And if they used to barrack for someone else and now they barrack for Hawthorn, how did you do it?
Tell me why.
Reasonable questions?
Very good.
Alright, well, Kelly, hopefully that's filled in a few gaps for you. You're more the wiser than you were before. And on that, Adam, I reckon it's time to go. Go Hawks!
Go Hawks.